What's up, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Dream Star Grand Prix daily review series for the 2025 tournament. I'm your host, as always, Scott E. And today we're talking day 3 and day 4 of the Dream Star Grand Prix. Yes, instead of putting up a two-match review that would have been right before putting day 4 up, we are now going to just combine them. So if there's ever a show that is not airing live the day before a live show, we will combine them most likely throughout this tournament as they get it up about an hour before the live stream. So that is your scheduling moving forward. But yes, I am here. I'm ready to talk about the two shows from Marigold Dream Star Grand Prix from this weekend here on this one recording. We have two matches from Saturday, four matches from Sunday. As we're seeing with this schedule, I think if you are following along, I think it's very clear that this Sendai Pit show was kind of the final big show before the five-star Grand Prix is over, and then I think you'll watch the Dream Star really kick into full gear, especially with that Cork and Hall show at the end of the month, which is very exciting. But before that, before we get to that, we're going to break down all the matches from here today. I thought the Sendai Pit Show had a good performance, including a very strong main event, one that I quite enjoyed and kind of fit my liking of pro wrestling to perfection. But I'll be perfectly honest with all of you. I am tired. I am sick. I've had a very long day, but I'm always here to deliver. We're doing this right after the show. I've already watched some of the GP2. That will be up hopefully during the afternoon on Sunday for all of you to enjoy. But hey, two recordings in one day. Try to get them out as fast as we can, as quickly as we can, and as quality as we can. So thank you everyone who continues to listen along to both of them. It means the world. It means the world. It's the reason I do it. So thank you to all of you. But with that being said, let's cut to the chase. Let's get to the reviews for the Dreamstar Grand Prix Day 3 and Day 4. Starting with Day 3 of the tournament, we had Kouki Amarei versus CHIAKI, where CHIAKI got her first win of the tournament and also is already four matches into the tournament, which I find is a very, very notable stat. Obviously, she is already far into the tournament, as is my Sakurai, Misa, Matsui, and Chenyota. They've all had four matches thus far. Meanwhile, obviously, the likes of a uh, Maria has only had two. Kazuna Tanaka, Mirai, Mikuano have only had two. So I think that's an interesting part of this tournament and interesting part of following along with this tournament is how many matches, when do they happen, and so on and so forth. But like I said, I think the interesting part is a lot of this tournament is backload. Mikuano is not wrestling again until um, the 30th. She's not wrestling until the 30th. And I think that's an important aspect of this. Mayu Iwatani had her final match until the 30th as well today. So that's an interesting aspect if you're following along with the Dream Star Grand Prix. Some of the big stars really locking in the last few weeks of the tournament. But let's get to Kouki Amarei versus CHIAKI here. Listen, very simple by the books, by the numbers type match. I don't think it was necessarily much to write home about. They're two wrestlers, I think, entering this tournament. A lot of the conversation was they both have to shine, they both have to find something here. I won't walk away and say this match was flat out bad or anything. I just think it struggled to one create excitement, two struggled to know what it fully was, and three, I think these two wrestlers are both in a spot in their careers where they need someone to guide them. So when they're facing each other, you're gonna have your hits and misses. You're gonna have your here's and there's type thing. You don't know what's exactly going to land, what exactly is going to uh make it. And overall, I just didn't feel like this match had the oomph behind it. Which is an interesting part of the schedule as well. This show happened in in Miyako City Gymnasium. So, like, it was just the crowd was there and all these different things. I just don't think it was made to be a match that was going to be one to remember. They had some moments. Kouki hit a big boot to kind of get back on offense. She had taken a lot of CHIAKI's offense throughout this match. Um, Hits a big back suplex on CHIAKI, but overall, this was kind of just CHIAKI running through Kouki and getting the big shock win. She hit the leg drop, top rope leg drop to pin Kouki and get her first win of the tournament. So overall, again, one of the weaker matches of the Dream Star Grand Prix thus far, but I don't think it was I think it was about as I expected, quite frankly. It was quick, it wasn't long either. I think that's a important aspect of this match as well. It was 9 minutes long, which was actually shorter than the next match, which is kind of a shock. But hey, that's how it goes. Speaking of which, the final match on day 3 that we're talking about here, there's just 2 matches on day 3. That was from the Star League as Mai Sakurai defeated Gochica. This match, I think, unfortunately, is going to have the potential to be the letdown of the tournament because of how good their United National Championship match was just a number of months ago. Because I look at these two wrestlers and I think they can create a story, they can create an exciting match. But it comes into certain situations here where I don't think it could have or came close to reaching such potential. When I watch this match, when I look at this match, I think this was this was Gochica not being on the top of her game. And listen, that happens, right? She's still a wrestler learning, she's still a wrestler growing. And I think that's an interesting conversation point, interesting topic point overall is Gochica doesn't need to be the super worker that some wrestlers are. But I do think that we've made watched her make the strides. We want her to see her have a big time tournament, and this felt like a match because of where it was featured, right? Kind of by itself, schedule wise, that I think could have jumped off the page a little bit more, and ultimately it did not. This wasn't her best showing. A lot of this was my Sakurai kind of taking the lead and hitting a lot of offense and then just flat out getting the win. I don't think the build up to the moment was necessarily what I was hoping for in terms of what these two can create, what these two can do. And I thought that was just an interesting aspect. Again, this show and the building, it wasn't a lively crowd by any stretch of the imagination, which can play to it as well. But ultimately, it was just an off day for Gochica that ultimately resulted in my Sakurai getting the win. Gochica did hit the choke slam. She did hit the uh, choke slam on my Sakurai. My Sakurai kicks out. My Sakurai comes through, hits a big time head kick on Gochica that had a little thump that was like, oof. Ultimately, and then in the end, my Sakurai would hit the STO, put on the STF, and force Gochica to tap out. So, if you had any expectation that maybe we get the big time upset from Gochica over my Sakurai, that was not to be the case here. This match didn't go as long as I expected either. I thought it would have got a little bit more time, but ultimately my Sakurai won at 8:38, so shorter than the Kouki and CHIAKI match like I added. But it is what it is, and ultimately that was day 3 of the tournament. So very short 2 matches. Not 2 matches I'm necessarily writing home about, not 2 matches I'm recommending by any stretch, but that's why we head over to day 4 here, starting with the Sendai Pit Show. Chanyota versus Nagisa Nozaki was our first match of the evening, and it was a fine encounter. You had typical heel work from Nagisa Nozaki. You had Chanyota trying to fight back, trying to battle back, and ultimately coming up short in the end. I think when I watch Nozaki, you know what you're gonna get, right? If she's not facing a Mirai or an Utami or someone of that sort, I think you're going to get the basic heal mode of Nozaki, which is a fine, simple heal mode that I think does its job to the most But you're not going to get a match that's like, wow, that's one of the matches I'm going to remember. And that's kind of where this went. Ever since that way Chanyota started in this tournament, right? Against Mai Sakurai in that awesome, awesome match, one of my favorites of the tournament. We haven't gotten to the next step here. And I think that is an interesting aspect that comes down to probably chemistry more than anything. I think if she had a second go with all these wrestlers next time around in other singles matches, it would be a different story. But I think that's an interesting theme to follow when it comes to Chanyota's tournament. Chenyota did fight through the early going heel attack of Nagisa Nozaki, hitting a diving shoulder block, then coming around and hitting another diving shoulder block. That was great. She also hit a strong lariat on Nozaki that kind of got her back into the match in the closing stretch. But once Nozaki locked in the sleeper hold, she put Chanyota out for the match and got the victory. So, like I said, not a match that I think I'm gonna write home about. I think everything from here, like the first three matches we review here, kind of whatever for me. It's from here that we kind of pick things up, which is really cool and really expected. But this was fine. The best of the three matches we talked about so far, probably. It just kind of was there. And that's kind of what happens when you're an early tournament match on any show. And I think that's important to remember too. So, no problem. Heel versus babyface. Heel get the win, build up Nozaki's points. That's kind of how you go with that. Now we kind of kick into that next gear that we were waiting for. This is the match that I was hoping Gochica had in many ways. It was Mai Sakurai versus Misa Matsui. Misa Matsui's a strong little tournament here. She's obviously a very solid worker. Um, and this was one of her stronger heel performances, I thought. Obviously, they had the really good United National title match a few months ago as well. So, building off of that, and what would Matsui look like here? What would Matsui look like here? Obviously, having big wins against Mikuano and Chanyota coming into this match, there is momentum there for Psycho Speed. And on the other hand, there's Mai Sakurai, who obviously lost her first match in shocking fashion to Chanyota, but has since built herself back up with kind of dominant wins overall since then. So the conversation point for me was, will Misa Matsui get that win? Can she make you believe in that win? And I think that's what she did. I think what Matsui did was build up to that win. And my new kind of running theme for both tournaments, because it happened so much, is into the chairs. Into the chairs we go. Matsui launching Sakurai into the chairs. She also poured water over Sakurai and soaked her. So that was another heel tactic that really was part of her game here. Um, there was a great drop kick on the outside from Sakurai, kind of like this missile drop kick of sorts that you could kind of see. Again, the one camera Wrestle Universe strategy. You can sometimes see it. They work inside the ring. My Sakurai gets the abdominal stretch on Matsui for a little bit. She also got cracked with the big knee from Matsui. I thought that was one of the more notable points of this. Matsui absolutely demolished Sakurai with a big knee. It looked like it hit her right in the chin. Um, My Sakurai continued in the match, hitting the diving elbow, but kick out by Matsui, battling back, fighting back, staying alive, which I thought was a very important part of uh, Matsui's overall package here. And in the end, Matsui shocked everyone, reversing or rolling through after Sakurai got the big move. Matsui rolling through, stealing the win, and shocking everyone. Overall, like I said, I thought this match was pretty good. And I would like to see Misa Matsui continue to get these big wins. That's Mikuano, Chenyota, and now Mai Sakurai so far in this tournament. It's a strong overall performance, it's a strong overall showing for Matsui, for Psycho Speed, who is adding big time wins and are already far ahead of where she was a year ago, which I think is very important as well. Overall, quite enjoyed what they brought to the table. Obviously, I've seen them have better matches in the past, but where they were on the card, the placement of the card, the understanding of the match itself, and where we were going, I quite enjoyed it. It was a fun one. It was a good one. And Matsui getting win is always a victory in my mind. So that was really good as well. We then had the semi-main event. Mayu Iwatani, one day after having to miss the show due to a high fever, was back. Thank God. I have missed the icon. I feel like I haven't watched her wrestling forever. And she faced Seto. So Seto gets the big time semi-main event. Obviously, the path to get here has been really fascinating for Seto, who went from not in the tournament to fighting her way into the tournament, then turning heel and all these different things. And that's a lot for a wrestler like Seto where she is in her growth. That being said, I think Mayu Iwatani did about as great of a job as she could have to help Seto. And I think that's why this match was so important. It's not going to be a match that you're going to think about at the end of the tournament necessarily in terms of like, oh, what's my favorite matches? But it doesn't always need to be that. Sometimes it just needs to be a match that I think gives confidence to a wrestler. And not Misa Matsui, and Seto, through her first two matches, she had a fine showing against Utami last time out, which I thought was a good start. But this match was needed. This match was needed for her heel persona, but also just her, and a lot of this was Mayu selling her knee. If you're following along with Seto, she's telling you what she's going to attack, and right from the start, before the bell even rings, she takes Mayu out. She takes Mayu's knee out, which was a big time spot, and that's the way we worked it. We worked to that right knee throughout the match with some gruesome submissions, ankle lock. There was one point she had Mayu's knee with her foot between, her leg and just ripping on that. And Mayu sold that like hell. Mayu sold it to the point I was worried watching. I was like, please be okay. Please be okay. Like, that is the commitment she had. She sat on the outside for a little bit trying to get it back, absolutely selling the hell out of that throughout the rest of the match. And I think that's the type of stuff that's going to help Seto believe a bit more in herself. If you have the icon willing to do something like this, I think that goes a far way. I think that's why this block is so important. And I think that's why Mayu is so important to this block. Um, you know, just continuously allowing Matsui to get the upper hand. There were moments throughout the match where, Mayu hits the big super kick kind of last second and then holds on to the knee. She hits the big bottom rope drop kick, holds on to the knee. All these little things of, I have enough in me, but not enough to necessarily keep the action going. She went for the big frog splash at one point, missed that. Seto got in, again, kept working that leg, and I think Seto is very focused in that, and that's how she succeeds. It's how we saw her start to succeed as a babyface. Now she got to do it as a heel in a way that Mayu was able to sell it and make it believable. All Mayu Utani needed in the end was a German suplex to get the victory, which I thought was honestly a good point of, listen, if this man, if Seto doesn't get caught like this, you never know where we're going. Maybe Mayu's knee gives out, maybe something like that. I enjoyed the match. I know, shocker, I enjoyed a Mayu match. I don't think, again, it's a match that you're going to maybe think of at the end of the tournament when it's like, oh, that was so great, top tier. But I do think that it's an important one for someone like Seto. When you look back at her tournament, what was a turning point? I think this can be that. I really do. And Mayu was willing to give it her all despite being sick and having to miss yesterday's show and all these different things. It's what they do. Maybe that, subtracted just a little time on the match, but it didn't really matter. And I think that's honestly why I quite enjoyed this match for what it was. Hopefully, it means more confidence for Seto as well moving forward. Mayu gets the big win. She moves to 4 points, so she's now 2-1. Obviously, after losing her last match, her very first singles loss in Marigold to Seri Yamaoka, while Seto sits at the bottom with 0 points. And then we had our main event, the highly anticipated rematch. Maybe I'm just the one highly anticipating. I don't know, but I could not wait for this match. Victoria Yuzuki versus Seri Yamaoka, the rematch from just the budding rivalry that these two have. These two are the ones locked in to lead Marigold into the now and into the future. And it will not shock you that I loved this match. I know, I know. It's not my match of the tournament or anything, but it's a great performance from both of them. And I think what I love about watching Seri Yamaoka and Victoria Yuzuki share the ring is the trust that they already have in one another, the trust to try new things, the trust to make strides together, the trust to see how far they can go without giving too much away. Again, these are two wrestlers who are still very new. Seri Yamaoka is still in her first year. She is so good already. She truly is one of my, I say it all the time. She is one of my favorites to watch. She is just out of this world in her ability, and I think she's just starting to fully realize what her ability is. And then on the other hand, Suzuki is the pro's pro. She is still not even through 2 years of her career, but she is continuously going out there and delivering and feels like a massive star. So when you put them together in their second singles match, right? The first one went to a 15-minute draw at Shinjuku Face a few months ago. This is their second one. Where is this going to go? They're both coming off major wins, right? Victoria Yuzuki pinned Utami Hayashishita, the world champion, on the opening night of the GP. Seri Yamaoka handed Mayu Iwatani her first loss on the opening night of the GP. Where does this go? Where can this tournament finish? What does that look like? And I think that's an important talking point overall for both of them, because if Mayu Iwatani isn't the one advancing, it feels like it's one of these two. So this is a crucial match, and so much of this match, so much of the way they were building it up, I'm like, oh, we're going to the 15-minute draw. But I loved this match, I really did. It ranks in like that great category, not or sorry, very good category. Just just super exciting wrestling. Like, I'm always going to be the high guy on their matches because this is what I love to watch in wrestling. These two are as exciting as it gets for me as a fan because of what they're creating, what they're becoming in time. These two may not, again, be wrestlers who have it all figured out, but they're not supposed to. They're not supposed to have it all figured out yet. The fact that we are already this good together and apart is incredible. So to go through this match, I think what the difference between the first match and this match is the advancement of Seri Yamaoka's overall moves. She is starting to focus more on her drop kicks and her spears and these different things that obviously are very exciting moves that jump off the page to me. And she's using that to take out Yuzuki, who for a lot of the first half of this match was on the back foot. And listen, this wasn't a perfect performance. There were little bits here and there where they were a little off, but it's in the biggest moments that they find it. In the biggest moments, and they create the drama in the closing minutes. Listen, the Sendai Pit's the Sendai Pit. We are lucky when anytime we get a crowd that is a little bit loud. And they were into this match, which is all I could ask for. You know, Izuki finally got back on the offensive when she hit a big time judo throw on Yamaoka, which was crushing at one point. As Izuki gets to the top rope and looks for a missile dropkick, she's instead met and caught with a Seri dropkick, who then follows that up with a dropkick to the back of Izuki. That was nasty, but it was also fantastic. Listen, these two are the future of wrestling. It's awesome. She then slapped Yuzuki, hit her with this nasty, nasty short burst German suplex, and then hit an air raid crash as well as Yuzuki tried to fire up to her feet. She followed that up trying to go for the Nanai Takahashi splash from the top rope, missed, and that's kind of where you saw Yuzuki get back on the upper hand, get back on the offensive, and really turn this match around. She hit her signature Saori style drop kick, followed by a cross body to the outside. She had a missile drop kick in the ring, locked Seri Yamaoka in a brutal cross face that turned into like the Rings of Saturn type looking move. That was an incredible struggle and point of this match. Watching Yamaoka try to get there, try to get there. She got her foot on the rope, but she fell off. Got her foot on the rope, but it fell off. She couldn't lock that in to get the pain off. And maybe those are the points that you treat and you make an important part of how this match ended. In the end, Yuzuki's weakening her shoulders with that Rings of Saturn style move, and why don't you know? She wasn't able to get her shoulders up for the kick out in the end. And I think that's a little thing I kind of like seeing how this goes. At one point, Yuzuki hits that new set out that she hits before the victory shooting. But Yuzuki's able to roll her over for a quick crucifix to get a great near fall. She gets up, hits the spear on Yuzuki, then hits the gut wrench trio, just fighting through, but Yuzuki kicks out. She then in the final seconds, Seri Yamaoka looks like she's closing on the win. Looks like she's gonna have the number of her senior in many ways. Despite being rivals, this is still her senior, right? Like this is still someone older than her. This is still someone that is a wrestler that is more advanced than her, but she looks like she's gonna get her upper hand. We've seen, in the one time we've seen these two pin each other, the upper hand was Yamaoka's. She beat her in that tag title match earlier this year, and otherwise they had the draw. So I think that was an interesting aspect. She hits the German suplex, goes for the Aoki clutch, but Yuzuki is smart enough to reverse that, get out of it, get into the rolling arrow, and shock everyone by pitting Seri Yamaoka in the middle of the ring to close out the main event, to go a strong 3-0 to start the tournament, and is now atop the Dream League through her first 3 matches. Like I said, very good match. If you are someone who is watching Marigold um, consistently or new, these are the types of matches I highly recommend you go out of your way to see. You may not like it at to the level of much as me, but you're gonna see the potential that these two carry. You're gonna see the potential that these two have, the potential that I think will carry this promotion forward and makes the future of this promotion so exciting. In the end, Victoria Yuzuki gets the win. This was the best match on either day that we just reviewed here. From Marigold quite easily, I thought, and just a really, really strong performance out of 2 of the best young wrestlers in all of professional wrestling. Now, let's get to our stats here. Um, Coming from Peps as always, which we greatly appreciate. So your Dream League standings are as followed. At the top, you have Victoria Yuzuki at 6 points. You have Mayu Iwatani, Seri Yamaoka, and Utami Hayashishita all with 4 points. You have CHIAKI, Kouki, Amarei, and Amarei with 2 points apiece. And then Seto sits at the bottom of the Dream League with 0. You then have Misa Matsui with 6 points, Chanyota, Sakurai, and Nagisa and Nozaki, all with 4 points, all tied for second. Amarei at 3 points, Chika Goto at 2 points, Mikuano at 1 point, and Kazuna Tanaka at 0 points. In terms of the MVP battle, which we like to, of course, show here, let me get that up real quick. So the MVP battle is as follows. We have some strong numbers here in the early going, especially in the Dream League and your MVP and such. So here is your MVP battle based on my ratings. Of course, these are not perfect, but this is where I'm at. Victoria Yuzuki leads the pack at a 3.50. I've quite enjoyed her first 3 matches. I think she's done a great job. You then have Seri Yamaoka right behind her at 3.42, while Mayu, Iwatani, and Utami are at 3.17. In terms of elsewhere, you have Mikuano at a 3.25. She doesn't wrestle again until the 30th, much like Mayu as well. So I think that's an interesting part. But your MVP right now for me is Victoria Yuzuki, who's having a great tournament. But that is all for me here for the Dream Star Grand Prix. We'll be back next weekend, of course, with more tournament action. The shows are as follows. I think that might be another double day review, which will make sense because I think it's only 4 total matches. So on the 16th, they are in Chiba. It'll be Utami Hayashishita versus Seri Yamaoka. So I'm psyched for that one. We'll also have Nagisa and Ozaki versus Amarei. Psyched for that one. We'll have Maria versus Ryetto on the Sunday show. That show will be live. I believe that's also one of these 2 shows. I think the 17th is also Gochica versus Mayu. So we will review that. That is going to be a bonus. We will review that match on the review. So definitely, if you want a little bonus, we got that for you. Don't worry. And then we'll have my Sakurai versus Kazuna Tanaka. Then the week after that will just be a 1-day 2 match review, and then we are at the Korakuen on the 30th. That show, by the way, that review, I'll get that up. I have a long day that day, but I'll make sure that's up. Don't you worry. But we have so much going on. We have so much going here. If you listen to this whole show, thank you so much. The 5-star Grand Prix edition will be up later today, so you can give that a listen. But before we get out of here, let me ask you to check out all the recordings we have over the past week, starting with last week's Dream Star Grand Prix Day 1 review. We reviewed all 16 matches from those 2 shows on that day. Then, of course, the 5-star Grand Prix has been going and going, so we've been covering it. We got day 4, day 5 up as well. We have day 6, and we have day 7 all up on the feed. Day 8 will be up soon enough. You can also check out Dreamstar Day 2, which is up as well. But thank you everyone for listening. Thank you everyone for your time. I hope you enjoyed this review. Leave a like, leave a comment. Let me know what your favorite match was from this group of shows, and we'll be back next week with more Dream Star Grand Prix reviews. But thank you everyone once again for listening. Thank you everyone for the support. If you are waiting for the 5-star Grand Prix review, it will be out later today, so just hold tight. Thank you for the support, like I said, because I keep saying that because it just means the world to me. I am tired, I am sick, but I get these shows in because you all mean so much to me. So thank you so much for that. And until next time, so long. See you later.